If this transmission resonated with you, consider joining our growing fleet by liking and subscribing. Out here, in the dark between stars, every new mind strengthens the signal. Share your ideas, and they may be woven into the next chapter of this universe, or even spark an entirely new story of their own. Your imagination is the fuel that keeps these worlds alive, and your support helps guide where we explore next. But something about this one felt heavier, older, as if the world on the other side was holding its breath. She reached out, letting her fingers hover just above the shimmering surface. The energy rippled in response, as though recognizing her presence. Aireia had always been sensitive to dimensional shifts, more than most. She could feel the subtle vibrations, the quiet warnings, the echoes of worlds that had already fallen. This one felt wrong, not unstable, not collapsing, just wrong. Footsteps approached behind her, steady and familiar. Jalen Cross came to stand at her side, adjusting the settings on his wrist device. The display flickered with shifting data streams, casting soft blue light across his calm, focused expression. He didn't speak at first. He rarely did before a jump. He preferred to listen, to the rift, to the silence, to the subtle vibrations that told him whether a world was stable or dying. Aireia finally exhaled. This one feels different. Jalen nodded, eyes still on the swirling tear. The signal came from deep inside. Short burst, distorted. Whoever sent it didn't have long. Aireia stepped closer to the rift. The air around it shimmered, bending light in unnatural ways. Then we shouldn't waste time. Jalen glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "You're sure you're ready?" She gave him a faint smile. "I'm always ready." Together, they walked forward, letting the swirling energy swallow them whole. The transition was immediate. One moment they were surrounded by the hum of the dimensional hub, and the next they were standing in the middle of a silent city. Fog drifted across the streets, thick enough to blur the outlines of buildings and streetlights. The air was cold, unnaturally still, as if the entire world had paused mid-breath. Aireia scanned the area slowly. No movement, no sound, nothing. Jalen moved beside her, sweeping his scanner across the street. The soft hum of its sensors felt strangely loud in the suffocating quiet. No heat signatures, no life signs. Whatever happened here, it was fast. They walked forward, boots crunching over broken glass. The sound echoed down the street, bouncing off hollow buildings like a reminder that they didn't belong here. Aireia paused beside an overturned bicycle, its wheels still faintly spinning as if touched by a breeze that didn't exist. "This place feels wrong," she whispered. Jalen nodded, like the world ended mid-sentence. They continued deeper into the city. The fog thickened, curling around their legs, clinging to their armor, swallowing the edges of the world until only faint silhouettes remained. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched across the pavement like reaching hands. Aireia lifted her scanner again. A faint teal pulse spread outward, illuminating dust particles suspended in the air. The device beeped softly, picking up traces of energy that didn't belong to this world. "Dimensional residue," she murmured. Something crossed over here. Jalen's jaw tightened. Recently? Very. They followed the trail toward a small cafe. The door creaked softly, swaying in the still air. Inside, chairs were overturned, cups shattered on the floor. A half-eaten meal sat abandoned on a table, the food untouched but cold. Aireia stepped inside, her eyes scanning every corner. People left in a hurry. Jalen examined the counter, running his fingers along the surface. Or they were taken. Aireia didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her scanner pulsed again, the teal light flickering across the cafe. It beeped sharply, picking up a stronger signal. This way. They exited the cafe and followed the trail down a narrow alley. The fog thinned slightly, revealing a collapsed fire escape and scattered debris. At the far end, half buried in rubble, lay a small beacon device. Its blue light flickered weakly. Aireia knelt. Brushing dirt from its surface, the beacon sputtered, projecting a broken hologram. A figure appeared, distorted, trembling, their face twisted in fear. "Help, please." "It's coming?" The image glitched violently, then stabilized just long enough for Aireia to see the terror in the person's eyes. "Don't let it find you." The hologram collapsed. Aireia exhaled, slowly. Whoever they were, they didn't stand a chance. Jalen didn't answer. He was staring past her. Aireia turned. A tall figure stood at the mouth of the alley. Humanoid, but wrong. Its body shifted like liquid metal, shadows rippling across its surface. Blue cracks pulsed along its limbs, glowing brighter with each movement. Its eyes were twin slits of blinding blue light, cutting through the fog like knives. Aireia rose slowly, wraithbound. The creature tilted its head, studying them with silent curiosity. The fog recoiled from its presence. Jalen stepped forward, placing himself between Aireia and the entity. "Stay behind me." The wraithbound glided forward, silent as death. The air around it distorted, bending like heat over fire. Aireia backed away. "We need to move." The creature raised one elongated arm, blue cracks flaring. They ran. The wraithbound surged after them, impossibly fast. Debris exploded behind them as its arm struck the wall, sending shards of brick scattering across the alley. The fog churned violently, swirling around the creature like a living storm. Aireia tapped her wrist device, opening a return rift. The air ahead shimmered, forming a swirling tear in reality, but it flickered, unstable. "Come on," she whispered. The wraithbound lunged. Jalen grabbed her arm. "Go." They dove through the collapsing rift, just as the creature's fingertips brushed the air behind them. They tumbled onto the metallic floor of the hub. The rift snapped shut with a violent crack. Aireia lay on her back, gasping. Jalen sat beside her, chest heaving. "That was too close," he said. Aireia held up the damaged beacon. It flickered weakly. A faint voice whispered through the static. "It's not alone." The beacon went dark. Aireia and Jalen exchanged a look. Fear, determination, and the weight of a new mission settling between them. But the silence didn't last long. The hub lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the floor, subtle but unmistakable. Jalen stood slowly. "Aireia, that's not the hub." She rose to her feet, scanning the room. The hum grew louder, resonating through the walls like a distant heartbeat. A console sparked. Another flickered. The air shimmered faintly, as if reality itself were bending. Aireia's breath caught. "No, it can't be." Jalen's voice was barely a whisper. "It followed us." A thin crack of blue light split the air behind them. Not a rift, a fracture. The metal floor trembled as the crack widened, glowing brighter, pulsing with the same unnatural energy they had seen in the wraithbound's body. Aireia stepped back. "Jalen." The fracture burst open. A wave of cold air swept through the hub, extinguishing lights, rattling consoles, plunging the room into flickering darkness. And from the fracture, something moved. A shape emerged from the fracture, its outline blurred by the shimmering distortion that clung to it like smoke. Aireia instinctively stepped back, her hand reaching for the sidearm holstered at her hip. The weapon felt small, almost laughably insignificant compared to the presence pushing its way into their world. The creature stepped forward, and the distortion peeled away like shedding skin. It was tall, easily twice Aireia's height, with a body that seemed carved from obsidian and threaded with glowing blue veins. Its limbs were long and angular, ending in sharp, claw-like digits that scraped against the metal floor with a sound that made Aireia's teeth ache. Its head was elongated, featureless except for two vertical slits of blinding blue light where eyes should have been. Jalen's voice was barely audible. "That's not a wraithbound." Aireia swallowed hard. "No. It's something worse." The creature tilted its head, studying them with a slow, deliberate motion. The blue veins along its body pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. The air around it shimmered, bending light in unnatural ways. Aireia forced herself to breathe. "We need to contain it." Jalen shook his head. "We can't. Not here." The creature took another step forward, and the floor beneath it groaned, metal warping under its weight. Aireia felt the temperature drop, a cold so deep it felt like it was seeping into her bones. "Jalen," she whispered. "Open a rift." "I can't." The fracture destabilized the hub's core. "If I try to open a rift now, it could tear the entire station apart." The creature raised one massive arm, blue cracks flaring with energy. Aireia didn't wait. "Move." They dove behind a console as a blast of blue energy tore through the air, slicing the console in half. Sparks erupted, showering the room in flickering light. The creature's attack left a glowing scar across the floor, the metal still sizzling. Jalen scrambled to his feet. "We need to get to the upper deck. The containment field might still be functional." Aireia nodded, firing a burst of energy from her sidearm. The shot struck the creature's chest, but the energy dissipated harmlessly across its surface, absorbed like raindrops into sand. "It's not working," she shouted. "Just slow it down." Aireia fired again, aiming for the creature's legs. The blasts staggered it for a moment, just long enough for Jalen to sprint toward the access ladder. "Aireia, now!" She backed away, firing as she moved, keeping the creature's attention on her. It advanced slowly, each step shaking the floor. The blue veins along its body pulsed faster, brighter. Aireia reached the ladder and climbed quickly, her muscles burning. The creature lunged, its clawed hand slamming into the ladder just below her. Metal bent and twisted, the impact sending a shockwave through the structure. Aireia pulled herself onto the upper deck, breathless. Jalen was already at the control panel, frantically typing commands. "Tell me you can activate the field," she said. "I'm trying." The system's damaged. The fracture disrupted half the circuits. The creature began climbing the ladder, its massive hands crushing the metal rungs like paper. Aireia fired again, aiming for its head. The blasts struck the glowing slits of its eyes, causing it to recoil with a distorted, metallic screech. "That bought us a few seconds," she said. Jalen slammed his hand on the console. "Got it?" A low hum filled the air as a translucent barrier flickered to life around the upper deck. The creature reached the top of the ladder just as the barrier solidified. It slammed into the invisible wall, the impact sending ripples of energy across the surface. Aireia exhaled shakily. "That won't hold it. For long?" Jalen nodded. "I know. but it gives us time to figure out what it is. The creature pressed its face against the barrier, the glowing slits of its eyes narrowing. It raised one clawed hand and dragged it slowly across the surface, leaving a trail of crackling energy. Aireia shivered. It's studying us. Jalen's fingers flew across the console. I'm scanning it now. Whatever it is, it's not native to the world we just visited. Aireia frowned. Then where did it come from? Jalen hesitated. The energy signature. It's similar to the Wraithbound, but stronger, older. Aireia's stomach twisted. You think it created them? I think it's something like a progenitor. Or a commander. The creature slammed its fist against the barrier, the impact sending a shockwave through the deck. The barrier flickered, dimming for a moment before stabilizing. Aireia stepped back. We need to reinforce the field. I'm trying. But the system's barely holding together. The creature struck the barrier again and again. Each blow weakened the field, the translucent surface flickering more violently. Aireia grabbed Jalen's arm. We need to leave. Now. Jalen shook his head. If we abandon the hub, it'll break free. And then it'll have access to every rift in the network. Aireia's breath caught. It could spread to every world. Exactly. The creature slammed its fist into the barrier one final time. The field shattered. A wave of energy exploded outward, throwing Aireia and Jalen across the deck. Aireia hit the floor hard, her vision blurring. She forced herself to sit up, her head pounding. The creature stepped through the remnants of the barrier, its glowing eyes fixed on them. Jalen staggered to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Aireia, run. She shook her head. Not without you. The creature raised its arm, energy gathering in its palm. Aireia reached for her sidearm, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The creature lunged, and the hub's emergency failsafe activated. A blinding flash of white light filled the room, accompanied by a deafening roar. The floor beneath them split open, and a containment chamber rose from the depths, its walls glowing with reinforced energy fields. The creature was caught in the chamber as it sealed shut, the energy fields locking into place with a thunderous clang. Aireia collapsed to her knees, gasping. Jalen sank beside her. The failsafe. I didn't think it still worked. Aireia stared at the containment chamber, her heart pounding. The creature slammed against the walls, but the reinforced fields held firm. For now, she whispered. Jalen wiped the blood from his forehead. We need to figure out what it is. And why it followed us? Aireia nodded slowly. And what happened to the world that sent the signal? The creature inside the chamber let out a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the entire hub. Aireia met Jalen's gaze. This isn't just a mission anymore, she said. It's a warning. The containment chamber vibrated under the creature's weight as it slammed its fists against the reinforced energy walls. Each impact sent a tremor through the hub, rattling loose panels and flickering the overhead lights. Aireia steadied herself against a console, watching the creature with a mixture of awe and dread. It's testing the field, she said quietly. Jalen nodded, wiping the last of the blood from his forehead. It's learning. Watching how the energy reacts, Aireia's jaw tightened. We need answers before it figures out how to break out. Jalen moved to the central console, fingers flying across the interface. I'm pulling up the hub's internal diagnostics. If the failsafe activated, it means the system detected a catastrophic threat level. Aireia glanced at the creature again. Catastrophic feels like an understatement. The creature paused its assault, turning its glowing eyes toward them. It tilted its head, the motion slow and deliberate, as though studying their reactions. The blue veins along its body pulsed in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Jalen's console beeped. Aireia, you need to see this. She joined him, leaning over the display. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing a map of the dimensional network, hundreds of interconnected nodes representing different worlds. One of the nodes pulsed red, the world they had just visited. Aireia frowned. What does the indicate? Collapse, Jalen said. Dimensional instability. The world is breaking down. Aireia's breath caught. Because of that thing, maybe. Or maybe it was already happening. And this creature was the cause. Aireia stared at the red node, her mind racing. We need to know what it wants. Jalen hesitated. Aireia, what if it's not here because of us? What if it's here because of the signal? Aireia turned to him. You think the signal wasn't a distress call? I think it was a lure. The creature slammed its fist against the containment wall again, the impact sending a shockwave through the deck. Aireia steadied herself, her heart pounding. A lure for what? She asked. Jalen swallowed. For us. Aireia stared at the creature, her pulse quickening. Why would it want us? Jalen didn't answer. He didn't need to. The creature's glowing eyes were fixed on them with unnerving intensity. Aireia stepped closer to the containment chamber, ignoring Jalen's warning look. She studied the creature, watching the way its body shifted, the way the blue veins pulsed. You followed us, she said softly. Why? The creature tilted its head again, its eyes narrowing. It raised one clawed hand and pressed it against the energy wall. The field rippled, struggling to contain the pressure. Aireia felt a chill run down her spine. It's trying to communicate. Jalen shook his head. Aireia, it's trying to break out. No, she said. Look at its movements. They're deliberate, controlled. It's not attacking blindly. It's responding. The creature pressed its other hand against the wall, the blue veins along its arms glowing brighter. The energy field flickered, dimming for a moment before stabilizing. Jalen stepped forward. Aireia, get back. But Aireia didn't move. She watched the creature closely, her mind racing. What are you? She whispered. The creature's eyes flared, and for a moment, the energy field between them shimmered with a faint pattern. Symbols, shapes, something that looked almost like language. Aireia's breath caught. Jalen, did you see that? He nodded, slowly. It's trying to project something. The symbols flickered again, forming a brief, distorted sequence before dissolving into static. Aireia stepped back, her heart pounding. We need to decode that. Jalen nodded. I'll run it through the translation matrix. He turned to the console, pulling up the recorded data. The holographic display flickered, showing the brief sequence of symbols. They were jagged, angular, shifting in ways that didn't conform to any known language. Aireia watched the projection, her mind racing. It's not just communication. It's a warning. Jalen frowned. How do you know? Aireia pointed to the symbols. Look at the pattern. It's repeating, emphasizing. That's not random. That's urgency. Jalen ran the sequence through the matrix. The system struggled, the translation algorithms flickering with error messages. It's not matching any known linguistic structure, he said. But there's a pattern. A rhythm? Aireia leaned closer. What does it say? Jalen hesitated. It's not a direct translation. More like an interpretation. Jalen, he exhaled. It says, more coming. Aireia's stomach twisted. More creatures like this? Or worse? The creature inside the chamber slammed its fist against the wall again, the impact sending a ripple through the energy field. The lights flickered, and the hub's structural supports groaned. Aireia stepped back. We need to reinforce the containment. Jalen nodded. I'll reroute power. From the auxiliary systems, he moved to another console, typing commands rapidly. The lights dimmed as power shifted to the containment chamber. The energy field brightened, stabilizing. Aireia watched the creature, her mind racing. If more are coming, we need to warn the council. Jalen shook his head. We can't open a rift. Not until we stabilize the hub. Aireia clenched her fists. Then we stabilize it. Jalen hesitated. Aireia. The fracture damaged the core. If we try to repair it while that thing is still here, we don't have a choice, she said. If more creatures like that are coming, we need to be ready. Jalen nodded reluctantly. All right, but we need to move fast. Aireia turned to the containment chamber. The creature's glowing eyes followed her. Unblinking. We'll figure out what you are, she whispered. And why you're here? The creature pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the blue veins along its body pulsing in a steady rhythm. Aireia felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't just watching them. It was waiting. The creature's growl reverberated through the containment chamber, a low, resonant vibration that made the reinforced walls tremble. Aireia felt the sound in her chest more than she heard it. The hub's lights flickered again, dimming to a faint glow before stabilizing. The entire station felt like it was holding its breath. Jalen leaned heavily against the console, his face pale. The failsafe bought us time, but not much. The chamber wasn't designed for something like that. Aireia nodded, her eyes fixed on the creature. We need to understand what it is before it breaks out. Jalen pulled up the hub's internal schematics. The cores destabilized. The fracture caused a cascade failure in the dimensional stabilizers. If we don't repair it soon, the entire hub could collapse. Aireia tore her gaze away from the creature. What do you need? Access to the lower levels, Jalen said. The stabilizer conduits run through the maintenance tunnels. But the system's locked down after the failsafe triggered. We'll have to override it manually. Aireia nodded. Then let's move. Jalen hesitated, glancing at the containment chamber. What about it? Aireia looked at the creature, its glowing eyes following their every movement. It's not going anywhere. Not yet. Jalen didn't look convinced, but he nodded. All right. Let's go. They moved quickly through the hub, the metallic corridors echoing with their footsteps. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Aireia felt the weight of the creature's presence even from a distance, as though its energy seeped through the very structure of the station. They reached the access hatch to the lower levels. Jalen knelt beside the control panel, prying off the casing with a small tool. Sparks flew as he bypassed the security lock. Aireia stood guard, her hand resting on her sidearm. The hub felt too quiet, too still. Every creak of metal, every flicker of light made her tense. Jalen muttered under his breath, "Come on. Just a little more." The panel beeped, and the hatch slid open with a hiss. "Got it," Jalen said, standing. "Let's move." They descended into the maintenance tunnels. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer. The walls were lined with thick cables and conduits, some of them sparking intermittently. The hum of the stabilizers echoed through the tunnels, a deep, rhythmic pulse that felt almost alive. Aireia shivered. It feels like the hub is breathing. Jalen nodded. The stabilizers are struggling to compensate for the fracture. The energy fluctuations are causing feedback loops. Aireia frowned. Can we fix it? Jalen hesitated. Maybe. But we need to reach the core junction. They continued deeper into the tunnels. The air grew colder still, and the lights flickered more violently. Aireia felt a strange pressure in her chest, as though the air itself was thickening. Jalen, she said quietly, do you feel that? He nodded. The energy levels are spiking. The fracture's influence is spreading. Aireia's hand tightened around her sidearm. We need to move faster. They reached the core junction, a large chamber filled with humming machinery and glowing conduits. The central stabilizer tower pulsed with blue light, its energy field flickering erratically. Jalen rushed to the control panel. The stabilizer's overloaded. If we don't reroute the energy, it'll collapse. Aireia scanned the room. What do you need me to do? Jalen pointed to a series of conduits along the wall. Those conduits regulate the energy flow. They're out of sync. You need to manually realign them. Aireia nodded and moved to the conduits. Each one pulsed with unstable energy, the glow flickering like a dying heartbeat. She placed her hands on the first conduit, feeling the vibration beneath her palms. Tell me when, she said. Jalen watched the readings on the console. Now, Aireia twisted the conduit, aligning the energy flow. The pulse steadied, the glow brightening. Next one, Jalen shouted. Aireia moved quickly, adjusting each conduit in turn. The stabilizer tower's energy field grew more stable with each adjustment, the flickering diminishing. You're doing it, Jalen said, his voice filled with relief. Keep going. Aireia reached the final conduit. It pulsed violently, the energy surging unpredictably. She hesitated. Jalen. This one's unstable. I know, he said, but we need it aligned. Carefully, Aireia took a deep breath and placed her hands on the conduit. The energy surged through her, sending a jolt up her arms. She gritted her teeth and twisted the conduit into alignment. The stabilizer tower flared with bright blue light, the energy field stabilizing completely. Jalen let out a breath. You did it. Aireia stepped back, her arms trembling. Is the hub stable? For now, Jalen said, but we still need to deal with the creature. Aireia nodded. Let's get back. They made their way back through the tunnels, the lights brighter now, the air less oppressive. But as they approached the upper levels, Aireia felt a familiar chill. Jalen, she whispered, do you hear that? He stopped, listening. A faint, rhythmic thudding echoed through the corridor. Aireia's heart sank. It's the containment chamber. They sprinted through the corridor, reaching the main deck just as the containment chamber shook violently. The creature slammed its fists against the energy walls, each impact sending a shockwave through the room. Aireia's breath caught. It's stronger. Jalen checked the console. The stabilizer repair must have given it more energy to draw from. The containment field is weakening. Aireia stepped forward, her eyes locked on the creature. We need to reinforce the field. Jalen shook his head. We can't. The system's at maximum capacity. The creature paused its assault, turning its glowing eyes toward them. It pressed its hand against the energy wall, the blue veins along its body pulsing in a steady rhythm. Aireia felt a chill run down her spine. It's communicating again. The energy wall shimmered, symbols flickering across its surface, the same jagged, angular shapes as before, but clearer now, more defined. Jalen's eyes widened. Aireia. It's forming a message. The symbols shifted, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. Aireia stepped closer, her heart pounding. What does it say? Jalen swallowed hard. It says, "They are coming." Aireia's breath caught. Who? The creature's eyes flared, and the symbols shifted again. Jalen read the new pattern, his voice trembling. "We were the first." Aireia stared at the creature, her mind racing. The first of what? The creature pressed both hands against the energy wall, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. The symbols flickered one final time. Jalen's voice was barely a whisper. "The others will follow." Aireia stepped back, her heart pounding. "We need to warn the council." Jalen nodded. "We need to prepare every world." The creature slammed its fists against the energy wall, the impact sending a shockwave through the room. Aireia steadied herself, her eyes locked on the creature. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. The creature's warning echoed in Aireia's mind long after the symbols faded from the containment field. "We were the first." The words carried a weight she couldn't shake, a sense of inevitability that pressed against her chest like a physical force. She stepped back from the chamber, her pulse quickening. Jalen stared at the console, his expression grim. If more of these things exist, if they're coming through fractures instead of rifts, we're dealing with something we've never seen before. Aireia nodded slowly. Fractures aren't natural. They don't just appear. Something has to tear them open. Jalen swallowed. And whatever did that might be even stronger than what's in that chamber. The creature slammed its fists against the energy wall again, the impact sending a ripple through the reinforced field. Aireia flinched, but the barrier held. "For now, we need to contact the council," she said. "They need to know what we found." Jalen shook his head. "The communication array is offline. The fracture surge fried half the relays. We'll have to repair it manually." Aireia exhaled sharply. "Of course it did." Jalen gave her a faint, tired smile. "Nothing's ever easy." Aireia turned back to the containment chamber. The creature's glowing eyes followed her, unblinking. It pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the blue veins along its body pulsing in a steady rhythm. "It's waiting," she whispered. Jalen frowned. "For what?" Aireia didn't answer. She didn't know. But the creature's posture, its stillness, its focus, it wasn't random. It wasn't mindless. It was deliberate. "We need to move," she said finally. "The longer we wait, the more unstable the hub becomes." Jalen nodded. "The communication array is on the upper deck. We'll have to reroute power from the auxiliary systems." Aireia glanced at the containment chamber one last time. "Let's go." They moved quickly through the hub, the metallic corridors echoing with their footsteps. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Aireia felt the creature's presence even from a distance, a cold pressure that seemed to seep through the structure. As they climbed the stairs to the upper deck, Aireia's wrist device buzzed softly. She glanced at the display. "Dimensional energy spike," she said. "Near the outer hull." Jalen froze. Another fracture? Aireia shook her head. Not yet. But something's pushing against the boundary. Jalen's face paled. We need to get that array online. Now, they reached the upper deck. The communication array sat at the far end of the room. A large, circular device with multiple antennae and glowing conduits. Sparks flew from one of the panels, and the main interface flickered erratically. Jalen rushed to the console. The surge overloaded the primary circuits. I'll have to reroute power manually. Aireia scanned the room, her hand resting on her sidearm. I'll cover you. Jalen pried open the panel, exposing a tangle of wires and circuitry. He muttered under his breath as he worked, his fingers moving quickly. Aireia paced the room, her eyes scanning every corner. The hub felt too quiet, too still. Every creak of metal, every flicker of light made her tense. Jalen, she said quietly. How long? Not long, he said. Just need to stabilize the power flow. Aireia nodded, but her unease grew. The air felt heavier, charged with static. She felt the faintest vibration beneath her feet, like a distant heartbeat. Jalen? She said again. Something's wrong. He didn't look up. I know. I can feel it too. Aireia moved to the window, overlooking the containment chamber below. The creature stood perfectly still, its glowing eyes fixed on the upper deck. It pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. It's reacting to something, Aireia said. Jalen glanced up. What? Aireia pointed. Look. Jalen followed her gaze. His eyes widened. It's sensing the energy spike. Aireia's pulse quickened. Whatever's pushing against the boundary. It's connected to that thing. Jalen returned to the console, his movements frantic. I need more time. Aireia stepped back from the window, her hand tightening around her sidearm. We might not have it. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for a moment before the emergency lights kicked in. A low, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls. Aireia's breath caught. Jalen. He didn't look up. I know. The hum grew louder, deeper, more insistent. The floor trembled beneath their feet. Aireia felt the pressure in her chest intensify, as though the air itself were thickening. Jalen, we need to move, she said. Almost there, he said, through gritted teeth. Just a few more seconds. Aireia scanned the room, her heart pounding. The hum grew louder still, the vibration shaking the walls. She felt a cold breeze brush against her skin, though there were no vents nearby. Jalen, she said, her voice trembling, something's coming. He slammed his hand on the console. Got it. The communication array flared to life, the conduits glowing brightly. The hum faded slightly, the pressure in the air easing. Aireia exhaled shakily. Good. Now send the... A deafening crack split the air. Aireia spun around. A fracture tore open in the center of the room. Blue light spilled from the tear, illuminating the deck in an eerie glow. The air shimmered, bending like heat over fire. The fracture widened, the edges crackling with energy. Jalen stumbled back. No, 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 no. Aireia raised her sidearm, her heart pounding. Jalen, get behind me. The fracture pulsed, sending a shockwave through the room. Aireia staggered, but held her ground. The tear widened further, revealing a swirling void of blue and black energy. Something moved inside the fracture. Aireia's breath caught. Jalen, run? He shook his head. I'm Not leaving you. The fracture pulsed again, and a massive clawed hand emerged, gripping the edge of the tier. The hand was larger than the creature in the containment chamber, its claws sharp enough to carve through metal. Aireia fired her sidearm, the blasts striking the hand. The energy dissipated harmlessly across its surface. "It's not working," she shouted. Jalen grabbed her arm. "We need to get out of here." The fracture widened further, revealing a massive, hulking silhouette. Blue veins pulsed across its body, brighter and more chaotic than the creature below. Aireia's heart pounded. "This one's bigger." Jalen pulled her toward the exit. "Move." The creature stepped through the fracture, its massive form shaking the deck. The lights flickered violently, and the communication array sparked, the conduits overloading. Aireia fired again, but the blasts had no effect. The creature let out a low, resonant roar that vibrated through the entire hub. Aireia stumbled, her vision blurring. Jalen pulled her to her feet. "Aireia, we have to go." She nodded, her breath ragged. "We need to get to the lower levels. We can seal it off." They sprinted toward the stairs as the creature advanced, its massive footsteps shaking the deck. The fracture behind it pulsed, sending waves of energy through the room. Aireia glanced back. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto hers, and she knew this was only the beginning. The words barely left Aireia's lips before the deck shuddered again, a deep, resonant vibration that rippled through the metal beneath their feet. The creature that had emerged from the fracture took another thunderous step forward, its massive form blotting out the emergency lights behind it. Blue veins pulsed across its obsidian-like skin, each pulse sending a faint shockwave through the air. Jalen pulled Aireia behind a support pillar as the creature's claws scraped across the floor, leaving glowing trails in the metal. "We can't fight that," he said, breathless. "Not with what we have." Aireia peeked around the pillar. The creature's glowing eyes scanned the room, searching, hunting. "We don't need to fight it," she said. "We just need to survive long enough to seal the upper deck." Jalen shook his head. "The emergency bulkheads are offline. The fracture surge overloaded the locking mechanisms." Aireia clenched her jaw. "Then we fix them." Jalen stared at her. "Aireia, that thing will tear us apart before we even reach the control panel." Aireia looked back at the creature. It moved slowly, deliberately, its massive form swaying with each step. It wasn't mindless. It wasn't rushing. It was confident, certain, as though it knew they had nowhere to run. "We don't have a choice," she said. "If we don't seal this deck, it'll reach the containment chamber. And if it frees the first creature..." Jalen didn't need her to finish. He nodded, swallowing hard. "All right. The manual override is on the far side of the deck. We'll have to draw it away." Aireia tightened her grip on her sidearm. "I'll distract it." Jalen grabbed her arm. "Aireia, no. You'll get yourself killed." She met his gaze. "We don't have time to argue." The creature let out a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the entire deck. Aireia stepped out from behind the pillar, raising her sidearm. "Hey," she shouted. The creature's head snapped toward her, its glowing eyes narrowing. Aireia fired. The blast struck the creature's chest, dissipating harmlessly across its surface. But it got its attention. The creature roared, the sound shaking the walls, and charged. "Go," Aireia shouted. Jalen sprinted toward the manual override panel as Aireia ran in the opposite direction, weaving between consoles and support beams. The creature barreled after her, its massive footsteps shaking the deck. Aireia dove behind a console as the creature's clawed hand slammed into the floor where she had been standing. Metal buckled under the impact, sparks flying. "Jalen," she shouted. "How much longer?" "Almost there," he called back, his voice strained. Aireia rolled to her feet and fired again, aiming for the creature's eyes. The blasts struck the glowing slits, causing the creature to recoil with a distorted, metallic screech. "Come on," she muttered. "Just a little more." The creature lunged again, its massive hand sweeping across the deck. Aireia dove to the side, the claws missing her by inches. She hit the floor hard, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. "Aireia," Jalen shouted. "Get clear." She forced herself to her feet, her vision swimming. The creature loomed over her, its glowing eyes burning with cold intensity. Aireia raised her sidearm, but her hands trembled. The creature reached for her, and the emergency bulkheads slammed shut. A deafening clang echoed through the deck as the reinforced doors sealed, cutting the creature off from Aireia and Jalen. The creature slammed its fists against the bulkhead, the metal denting under the impact. Aireia collapsed to her knees, gasping. Jalen rushed to her side, helping her up. "You okay?" he asked, breathless. Aireia nodded weakly. "Yeah. Thanks to you." Jalen glanced at the bulkhead. The metal groaned under another impact. "That won't hold forever." Aireia steadied herself. "We need to get to the lower levels. If we can isolate the hub's core, we might be able to contain the fractures." Jalen nodded. "And maybe figure out how to stop whatever's coming." They moved quickly through the corridor, the lights flickering overhead. The hum of the stabilizers echoed through the walls, a constant reminder of the hub's fragile state. As they descended the stairs, Aireia felt the faintest vibration beneath her feet. Not from the creature. Something else. "Jalen," she said quietly. "Do you feel that?" He nodded. Another energy spike. Aireia's stomach twisted. "Another fracture?" "Not yet," Jalen said. "But something's pushing against the boundary again." Aireia clenched her fists. "We need to stabilize the core before the whole hub collapses." They reached the lower levels. The air was colder here, the lights dimmer. The walls were lined with thick cables and conduits, some of them sparking intermittently. The hum of the stabilizers grew louder, more erratic. Jalen moved to the central console, the cores destabilizing again. The fracture energy is spreading through the network. Aireia scanned the room. "What do you need me to do?" Jalen pointed to a series of control nodes along the wall. "Those nodes regulate the core's energy flow. They're out of sync. You need to realign them." Aireia nodded and moved to the first node. It pulsed with unstable energy, the glow flickering like a dying flame. She placed her hands on the node, feeling the vibration beneath her palms. "Now," Jalen shouted. Aireia twisted the node into alignment. The pulse steadied, the glow brightening. "Next one," Jalen called. Aireia moved quickly, adjusting each node in turn. The core's energy field grew more stable with each adjustment, the flickering diminishing. "You're doing it," Jalen said, his voice filled with relief. "Keep going." Aireia reached the final node. It pulsed violently, the energy surging unpredictably. She hesitated. "Jalen, this one's unstable." "I know," he said, "but we need it aligned." Carefully, Aireia took a deep breath and placed her hands on the node. The energy surged through her, sending a jolt up her arms. She gritted her teeth and twisted the node into alignment. The core flared with bright blue light, the energy field stabilizing completely. Jalen let out a breath. You did it. Aireia stepped back, her arms trembling. Is the hub stable? For now, Jalen said. But the fractures are getting stronger. And whatever's pushing against the boundary, it's not stopping. Aireia nodded slowly. Then neither are we. She turned toward the corridor, her eyes narrowing. We need answers, she said. And we need them now. Aireia moved down the corridor, with Jalen close behind, the hum of the stabilizers echoing through the walls like a distant storm. The air felt heavier now, charged with a static tension that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. Every step seemed to vibrate through the metal floor, as though the hub itself was reacting to the fractures spreading through its structure. They reached the central junction of the lower levels, a wide, circular chamber lined with conduits and glowing panels. The core's energy field pulsed steadily now, but the rhythm felt wrong, too fast, too strained. Aireia could feel it in her chest, a pressure that made it hard to breathe. Jalen moved to the main console, his fingers flying across the interface. The stabilizer's holding, but the energy spikes are getting worse. The fractures are pushing against the boundary from multiple points. Aireia scanned the chamber, her eyes narrowing. How many? Jalen hesitated. 3, maybe 4. Aireia's stomach twisted. 4 fractures? At once? Jalen nodded grimly. Whatever's out there, it's coordinated. Aireia clenched her fists. We need to isolate the core. If we can contain the energy flow, we might be able to slow the fractures. Jalen shook his head. We can't isolate the core while the upper deck is compromised. The energy feedback would overload the entire system. Aireia exhaled sharply. Then we need to deal with the creature first. Jalen looked at her, his expression tense. Aireia, that thing is stronger than anything we've ever encountered. And the one in the containment chamber isn't alone, Aireia finished. I know. The hum of the stabilizers grew louder, the vibration shaking the walls. Aireia felt the pressure in her chest intensify, as though the air itself were thickening. Jalen, she said quietly, we're running out of time. He nodded. I know. Aireia moved to the central platform, her eyes scanning the glowing conduits. If we can reroute the energy flow, we might be able to reinforce the boundary, at least long enough to buy us time. Jalen joined her. It's risky. If we miscalculate, the core could overload. Aireia met his gaze. We don't have a choice. Jalen hesitated, then nodded. All right. I'll guide you through it. They moved quickly, adjusting the conduits and rerouting the energy flow. The core's pulse steadied, the glow brightening. Aireia felt the pressure in her chest ease slightly. You're doing it, Jalen said, his voice filled with relief. Keep going. Aireia reached the final conduit. It pulsed violently, the energy surging unpredictably. She hesitated. Jalen, this one's unstable. I know, he said, but we need it aligned. Carefully, Aireia took a deep breath and placed her hands on the conduit. The energy surged through her, sending a jolt up her arms. She gritted her teeth and twisted the conduit into alignment. The core flared with bright blue light, the energy field stabilizing completely. Jalen let out a breath. You did it. Aireia stepped back, her arms trembling. Is the hub stable? For now, Jalen said, but the fractures are getting stronger. And whatever's pushing against the boundary, it's not stopping. Aireia nodded slowly. Then neither are we. She turned toward the corridor, her eyes narrowing. We need answers. she said. And we need them now. Jalen followed her, his expression tense. Where are we going? Aireia didn't hesitate. The containment chamber. Jalen's eyes widened. Aireia, that thing, knows what's coming, she said. It's been trying to communicate. We need to understand what it's telling us. Jalen swallowed hard. And if it's lying, Aireia met his gaze. Then we'll deal with it. But right now, it's the only thing that knows what we're facing. They moved quickly through the corridor, the lights flickering overhead. The hum of the stabilizers echoed through the walls, a constant reminder of the hub's fragile state. As they approached the containment chamber, Aireia felt the familiar chill return. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer. The creature's presence pressed against her senses like a physical force. They reached the chamber. The creature stood perfectly still, its glowing eyes fixed on them. It pressed its hand against the energy wall, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. Aireia stepped forward. We need to talk. The creature tilted its head, the motion slow and deliberate. The energy wall shimmered, symbols flickering across its surface. Jalen moved to the console. It's projecting again. The symbols shifted, forming a new pattern. Aireia watched closely, her heart pounding. What does it say? She asked. Jalen hesitated. It's a warning. Aireia's stomach twisted. About what? Jalen swallowed. About the fractures. The symbols shifted again, forming a more complex pattern. Jalen's voice trembled. It says, the boundary is breaking. Aireia stepped closer to the chamber. Why? What's causing it? The creature pressed both hands against the energy wall, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. The symbols flickered, forming a new message. Jalen read it aloud. They are searching. Aireia's breath caught. Searching for what? The creature's eyes flared, and the symbols shifted again. Jalen's voice was barely a whisper. For you. Aireia stepped back, her heart pounding. Me? The creature pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the symbols flickering rapidly. Jalen read the new pattern, his voice trembling. You opened the path. Aireia's breath caught. The rift. The signal. Jalen looked at her, his expression pale. Aireia, whatever sent that signal, it wasn't asking for help. Aireia stared at the creature, her mind racing. It was calling me. The creature's eyes flared, and the symbols shifted one final time. Jalen read the message, his voice barely audible. They are coming for the one who walks between worlds. Aireia felt the blood drain from her face. Jalen turned to her. Aireia, that's you? The creature slammed its fists against the energy wall, the impact sending a shockwave through the room. Aireia steadied herself, her eyes locked on the creature. This isn't just the beginning, she whispered. It's a hunt? The words hung in the air like a cold mist, settling over the containment chamber with a weight Aireia could feel in her bones. The creature inside the field pressed its hands against the barrier, the blue veins along its body pulsing in a frantic rhythm. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't trying to escape. It was warning them. Jalen stepped back from the console, his face pale. Aireia, if they're hunting you, they're hunting us, she corrected. I opened the rift. You stabilized it. We both walked through. Jalen shook his head. No. The message was specific. The one who walks between worlds. That's you. You're the one who senses rifts before they open. You're the one who can feel dimensional shifts. They're coming for you. Aireia didn't respond. She couldn't. The truth of his words pressed against her chest like a tightening band. She had always been different, ever since the first time she stepped through a rift. She could feel the energy, sense the direction, predict the instability. The council called it intuition. But what if it was something else? The creature slammed its fists against the energy wall again, the impact sending a ripple through the chamber. Aireia steadied herself, her eyes locked on the creature. "Why me?" she whispered. The creature tilted its head, the glowing slits of its eyes narrowing. The symbols flickered across the energy wall again, forming a new pattern. Jalen leaned closer. "It's projecting something else." The symbols shifted, rearranging themselves into a more complex sequence. Jalen's eyes widened as he read the translation. "You opened the path because you were chosen." Aireia felt the blood drain from her face. Chosen by who? The creature pressed its hand against the wall again, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. The symbols flickered, forming a new message. Jalen swallowed hard. "By the ones who came before." Aireia stepped back, her heart pounding. "The ones who came before. What does that mean?" Jalen shook his head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's ancient. Older than the Wraithbound. Older than the fractures." Aireia stared at the creature, her mind racing. "If they chose me, then they know who I am. They know what I can do." Jalen's voice was barely audible. "And they're coming for you." The creature slammed its fists against the energy wall again, the impact sending a shockwave through the room. The lights flickered violently, and the hub's structural supports groaned. Aireia steadied herself. "We need to get out of here." Jalen nodded. "We need to reach the emergency rift generator. If we can open a controlled rift, we might be able to escape before the fractures spread." Aireia glanced at the containment chamber. "What about it?" Jalen hesitated. "We can't take it with us. And we can't leave it here?" Aireia's jaw tightened. "We'll have to make a choice." The creature pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the symbols flickering rapidly. Jalen read the new pattern, his voice trembling. "Do not leave me. They will follow." Aireia stared at the creature, her heart pounding. "It wants to come with us." Jalen shook his head. "Aireia, we can't bring that thing into another world. We don't know what it's capable of." Aireia stepped closer to the chamber. "It's not attacking us. It's warning us. It's trying to help." Jalen's voice rose. "Or it's manipulating you." Aireia turned to him. "Jalen, look at it. Really look. It's terrified." Jalen hesitated. The creature's glowing eyes were fixed on Aireia, the blue veins along its body pulsing rapidly. It pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the symbols flickering. Jalen read the message. "They will consume everything." Aireia felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to move. Now." Jalen nodded, reluctantly. "The emergency rift generator is on the lower deck, but we'll have to pass through the central corridor." Aireia's stomach twisted. "Where the other creature is." Jalen nodded. "We sealed it behind the bulkhead, but it won't hold forever." Aireia turned to the containment chamber. "We need to release it." Jalen stared at her. "Aireia, no, that thing is our only chance," she said. "If the larger creature breaks through the bulkhead, we won't stand a chance. But this one, it knows them. It might be able to slow it down." Jalen shook his head. "Or it might kill us." "Aireia, met his gaze. We don't have time to debate this. The creature pressed its hand against the energy wall again, the symbols flickering rapidly. Jalen read the message. I will help. Aireia stepped back from the chamber. Open it. Jalen hesitated. Aireia, open it, she repeated. Jalen exhaled shakily and moved to the console. If this goes wrong? Aireia nodded. I know. Jalen entered the override code. The containment chamber's energy field flickered, dimmed, and then collapsed with a soft hum. The creature stepped forward, its massive form casting a long shadow across the chamber. Aireia tensed, her hand hovering over her sidearm. The creature stopped in front of her. It lowered its head. A gesture of submission. Aireia exhaled slowly. Thank you. The creature straightened, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It turned toward the corridor, its posture shifting into something predatory. Jalen swallowed hard. It's ready. Aireia nodded. Let's move. They moved quickly through the corridor, the creature following close behind. The lights flickered overhead, the hum of the stabilizers growing louder. As they approached the central corridor, Aireia felt the familiar chill return. The bulkhead door trembled under the force of repeated impacts. The larger creature was trying to break through. Aireia raised her sidearm. Get ready. The bulkhead buckled, metal groaning under the strain. A massive clawed hand punched through the door, tearing it open. The larger creature roared, its glowing eyes burning with cold intensity. Aireia stepped back, her heart pounding. The smaller creature moved in front of her. It let out a low, resonant growl. The larger creature roared again, the sound shaking the corridor. The smaller creature roared back. The two creatures charged. The impact shook the entire hub. Aireia grabbed Jalen's arm. Go. Now. They sprinted down the corridor as the two creatures clashed behind them, their roars echoing through the hub. Aireia didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel the battle shaking the walls. And she knew this was only the beginning of the hunt.